So we're back again with another video, and today we're going to be talking about the OnePlus 6 and how it's been over the last month that we've actually used it. So this isn't going to be about the specs necessarily. If you want that, you can watch our video, which we'll link up here. And otherwise, today will just be about how I felt, how my colleagues felt using the phone in the last month. So first thing, which is really central with the OnePlus 6, is its amazing speed. All the way from face unlock, which is probably the most rapid on this phone compared to other phones, to just opening apps or swiping through tabs. It's just ridiculously fast, especially if you've got the upgraded model with the 8GB of RAM. This isn't essential, of course, because most other phones have way less than that. They have something like 3 gigs. The iPhone X had 3GB of RAM. The base model of the OnePlus 6 is 6 gigs of RAM, which is still going to outcompete most other smartphones. Going through most apps, games especially like GTA on this phone, which are really high power games for a smartphone, have presented like no problem for us over the last month, and the fluidity hasn't gone down at all. Animations rarely or never show any glitches so far. I'm positive that with 8 gigs of RAM and a Snapdragon 845 processor, this phone shouldn't slow down significantly, at least within the next year or so. But we'll probably do another update on that later.
The camera. So, for a £500 phone, it's a pretty good camera. Like, it's got all the main features, portrait mode. It's got, it can film in 4K 60 frames per second, which is probably one of the best. But it's down to personal preference. Personally, I like the Pixel. I have one. It also has a super slow-mo mode, which is 480 FPS, which is, well, it's not as good as the S9, but for £500, like almost half the price, it's pretty damn good. HDR on this camera is actually really good as well. The colors are just bursting out the screen. You should buy it. There are some drawbacks to this phone, such as just tiny little things like portrait mode. The tracking and the distinction between objects isn't as good as other phones such as the Pixel, so it will blur out things that you probably wanted in focus, which is not as good. Another thing that OnePlus has done really well is optical image stabilization, which is, so like let's say you're walking down the street, you're bobbing along, and it will kind of smooth it out, and it will just look really smooth, as if there was no shaking at all.
So now I'll go into the software on the OnePlus 6 a bit. It's running the latest version of Oxygen OS, but obviously because it's OnePlus, the special thing is that you get updates at the same time or just a bit after Google phones. So after the Google Pixel 2, you'll be the first in line to get an update, which is something that other companies like Samsung can't really say for their customers. An advantage of the Oxygen OS that's tailored to OnePlus is that you get a dashboard on the side. Now with this you can have lots of different apps which you want to open quickly, but also other stuff like you can scan barcodes and it will add your card onto that dashboard, so you don't need to carry the physical card with you all the time. Another really important thing with the software on the OnePlus 6 is that the reason the battery life is so great on the OnePlus 6, and that's one thing which we need to talk about, is that the software has been optimized by OnePlus to work really well. So even though the battery size itself is pretty average, the battery life is amazing, and we'll get into that later. So obviously the software, which works really well with the 8 gigs of RAM and the 845 processor, combined with the fact that the Oxygen OS is almost exactly like stock Android, which is really simple to run, makes the phone rapid, extremely fast. So animations, opening apps, everything is almost it's even faster than the Pixel series, which is made by Google itself. which is pretty amazing. So you won't be let down in terms of speed, definitely, on this phone. Okay, so earlier I mentioned that the battery life on this phone is superior to any, it's like really good. And even though the battery is only a 3,300 milliamp hour battery, which is actually really average for a smartphone these days, in comparison, the Samsung S10, which is coming out, is rumored to have a 4,000 milliamp hour battery. Why do Samsung phones run out of battery fairly quickly, from my experience? That's because their software has a lot more features which are unnecessary sometimes, but also it hasn't been optimized as well to save battery life. The main difference between, say, a Samsung and this OnePlus 6 is that the battery is so good because of the software optimization. So it's got many features in place through their optimized software to make sure the apps aren't running in the background too much, and the battery generally lasts well over a day. In fact, from experience in the last month, I found that I can not charge my phone for like 1.5 days and it will still be on 30%. So that's good. But the main thing with this phone, some people have complained how it doesn't have wireless charging, which is basically ridiculous if you think how slow wireless charging is compared to the dash charging that comes with this phone. I plug in my phone and within half an hour it's basically fully charged. So I don't see what the complaint is there. And that's something that you'll really enjoy as a customer with this phone.
So, another thing that's really good about this phone is that it has lots of tactile buttons, a nice satisfying click to it. So it's got a volume rocker, a power button obviously. You've also got a notification slider, so you can mute your notifications if you want to. It's basically like a manual do not disturb, which is pretty good. I think I'd find it useful, but I don't know about you. It's also got a really good fingerprint sensor. It's really fast. I think it's probably one of the fastest I've ever seen. But it's also got, as we've said before, the nice, really fast face unlock, which is probably the fastest on the market right now. It's your choice, once again.
So now I'm going to conclude this video, and one thing which we haven't mentioned yet is obviously the headphone jack. Now, I personally actually use wired earphones a lot, the AKG ones, which you can order from Amazon, which come with the Samsung box, actually. And, you know, personally, I don't think that Bluetooth earphones in particular have matched the sound quality that wired ones have yet. So I think it was a bit premature for companies like Apple to get rid of the headphone jack so early, and I've really enjoyed it on this phone. But it's a great phone. It's about half the price of the iPhone X, and you know, in my opinion, it's arguably better, especially since I like Android a lot more than iOS in terms of the features which you get with it. In my opinion, it would be a great buy for anyone. Anyone, even somebody who would be willing to spend £1,000.
Would I buy this phone, or would you buy this phone? That's the question. Well, I would buy this phone if I didn't have a good phone, which I enjoy very much, the Google Pixel 2 XL. And also, I think you should buy this phone, especially if you're looking at something like an iPhone X, or even a Samsung Galaxy S9 or S10, which is coming out soon. But yeah, it's still a really good phone. Perhaps you might even want to wait for the OnePlus 6T, which is actually coming out pretty soon as well. But you need to wait and see if that can match the quality of this phone here. That's us from R2D Tech, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.